I promise this week I won't get mad. Maybe I'll be a bit critical, but I won't get mad. I won't say problem or no problem. Actually, that's a lie. I'll probably end up saying it. We'll see. Of course, I'm talking about chapter 1181 of One Piece, which reveals to us the beginning, the start of the fight between Imu and Loki. The more or less unofficial Crown Prince of Elbaf. Well, the fight is supposed to be tremendous, supposed to be epic. Well, I won't hide from you that the epic part, I just don't feel it this time. Except for Loki's last move, I thought, here we have a sense of scale, a sense of grandeur. There you go, we're in a Dragon Ball X fight, meaning I hit you with a giant hammer, you fly 300,000 kilometers away, smashed against the tree like that, with a little Vegeta-like smile, I say, okay, now I like it, now I like it. But still, I tell myself, well, here we have a bit of an explanation. At least the beginning of an explanation, some clues about Imu's power, which has something to do with domination. So he explains his power a bit with some weird terms. And basically he says that, basically what guides the world are people with unhealthy desires. That's it, that's it. You want to become king? You want power? Well, sign the pact with me, I'll give it to you, and then I'll use that power myself afterwards. That's it. And he calls his power domination. There you go. So I like the idea. I really like the idea. It's more the representation of the idea that leaves me a bit skeptical. Why? Why? Because we're clearly going for a semantic trip, and a cartoonish one too, actually. It's a Toon too. It's an evil Toon, but it's still a Toon. When he spits his little flames and stuff, when his big mouth opens up, he goes, "Not true, I'm coming, ah!" With a big mouth like that, it's because he's a Toon. There you go. The choice is intentional. It's that kind of Toon that's going to look a bit unsettling, a bit scary, but it's still a Toon. In contrast to Luffy, aka Joy Boy, aka Nika, call him whatever you want, who is also a Toon, but he's more of a Toon of joy, of laughter, a fun Toon. But at the same time, I understand the idea. I understand the idea because what is Luffy's power? What is it? Luffy's power isn't being made of rubber. Luffy's power is being free. That's his power. He embodies freedom. His power is being free, so the laws of physics no longer have any effect on him. And what kind of character isn't affected by physics? Well, you get what I mean. A Toon. That's it. And so by contrast, when you embody freedom, what is it? The opposite of freedom is control, domination. Someone who wants to control, who wants absolute power, but he wants absolute freedom. And absolute freedom is having power over no one and no one having power over him. The other is the opposite. He wants to have control over everyone. And by having control over everyone, he acquires in a certain way a form of freedom. So, the opposition is obvious. The opposition is clear. The opposition can be interesting. It's just that we're going to have a Toon fight. That said, and Oda is really amazing at a lot of things. As for Toon versus Toon, honestly, you'll have to show off some monstrous talent for us to really feel like we're in the fight. Because already it's a problem. Yes, I use the word problem. There you go. That means I won't last long. It's already a problem that a lot of people think is there. My sentence doesn't make sense, but you get what I mean. It's that there's a bit of a lack of epicness, of badassery in Gear 5, because, the enemies are going all out, Kaido was going all out, and Luffy was just like honk, 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 except for the final blow, which was kind of cool. The rest was just honk, honk, honk. He's fighting against the 5 elders, we're supposed to be stressed, and he's just like honk, 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 I'm sending your attacks back, I don't care. He's fighting against Rob Lucci in his awakened form, and he's just like, hey, honk, 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 honk. They're blocked. Same thing. He's on Elbaf, and he's just like, honk, 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 honk. There you go. Now, the problem is we're going to have a serious honk, honk, like honk, honk versus honk, honk. Daffy Duck versus Bugs Bunny, alright? Why not? Once again, I get the idea. I understand the intention, at least I think I understand the intention. And I ask myself, how are we going to make this epic? But in theory, it works. Absolute domination versus absolute freedom. Who will win? There you go. Because actually, Imsama has an advantage, which is that he takes advantage of people's desires. That's interesting. You want power? I'll give you some. You've got some kind of selfish wish. I'll give you what you want. So he has to face incorruptible people. That's the problem. And Luffy is incorruptible. I understand. But for Luffy to really be able to disarm Imi and Rona, it's not enough to just beat him physically. He also has to defeat him ideologically. Let me remind you that all fights, normally, the important fights, at least in this kind of shonen, are above all ideological struggles, ideological confrontations. How will Luffy convince them? Will Luffy be able to convince the world to choose freedom over power? Because freedom, in a way, freedom is a philosophical debate, and ultimately, to be truly free, you also have to free yourself from desire. In a way, say you have a dream, you want to become, I don't know, the best baker in the world. In the end, you're not free, in a way, because you're kind of tied to that goal, in a way. So, in absolute terms, if you wanted to be completely free, you would have to give up your desire. That question might come up for Luffy. Despite his absolute freedom, he's still driven by desire. To find the One Piece and become king of the pirates. He also has another dream beyond that. At some point, will he maybe have to give up that desire to be truly free and be able to defeat the villain? That could be really interesting. He's so close to his dream, but in the end, the One Piece I'll leave to you. I'd rather save the world. That could be really interesting. I'd rather prove to absolute domination that it can't win against absolute freedom. That would be really interesting. Are we going to go there? I have no idea, but I would find that very interesting. Yeah, the problem is it's going to be Bugs Bunny versus Daffy Duck, but hey, if it's done well, I'd say why not? Also, staying in the same vein, what's interesting is how he contrasts with Loki as a character. Now, Loki has every reason in the world to want to go after Imsama. Obviously, he had to kill his father because of him. So it's not nothing after all, so he has a real personal grievance against him. And Imsama is changing too, but we don't really know why. Is it because he didn't manage to completely dominate Harold? How did that harm him? I'm missing something here since now he's in a bad spot with Elbaf and everything. But originally he had plans for Harold. How was he the most wronged? Because when it comes to Loki, the answer is that his father was killed, okay? But I'm the one who was the most wronged in this story. What does that mean? Anyway, the opposition is interesting because Loki is also someone who prefers to be free. He even prefers to be free rather than to be loved. That is to say, he accepted being seen as the bastard, being rejected by his own people rather than giving up his freedom, in a way. So Imsama, you see, he's trying to corrupt him. He's like, hey, don't you have a dream? Don't you want something? Don't you also want to sign a divine pact with me or a demonic pact with me? He says, no, 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 no one dominates me. No one will control me. I stay free. But maybe Loki's desire isn't power. Maybe his desire is somewhere else. Maybe he has a different desire. And here, it would be interesting if Imsama managed to win him over. Oh, you don't want power? Well, wait, I can give you something else. I don't know. You see? Maybe he can do that. Maybe I can resurrect your mother. Maybe not, in my opinion, he can't do things like that. But I can make it so that you will be loved by Elbaf. There you go. If you come to my side with your A-dog, then I'll spare Elbaf, for example. Something could happen. There might be a moment when he'll doubt. Wait, you mean my people will prosper and you'll leave them alone if I work for you? A bit like his father, because now he's in the same dilemma his father had at one point, except Harold didn't see the trick. He was a bit foolish. He didn't see the trick. But he could have offered him that. Okay, I'll spare Elbaf. But you, demon, and your little magic squirrel, you come work with me. And then I'll spare your people. There you go. Your father was too stupid not to sign the pact. Come with me, you see? And then Loki could have a dilemma like, okay, my desire is to protect my people. But no, the pride of the giants, I think the giants too, in a way, that would be a really interesting scene. All of Elbaf would rather die than give up their freedom. Here you go. Has that ever happened in One Piece? A whole country saying, no, fuck you? There you go. You want to wipe us out? Go ahead, wipe us out. We'd rather die. We'd rather disappear from history than suck up to you, you bastard. That would be magnificent. That would be magnificent, a scene like that. So I think the subject is interesting now. I'm starting to understand. Okay, Imsama, why is he here? What does he embody? What does he represent? He represents domination as opposed to total freedom. That's interesting. Well, how is it done? I'm still pretty skeptical, but we'll see where this goes. We see that Luffy off to the side is eating like crazy because he knows things are getting intense, guys. I need to eat. Give me as much food as possible so I can recover, because it's going to get really tough. I'm still convinced that I think Luffy is going to lose. That's it, because otherwise the manga is basically finished. I'm sure Imsama is the final villain. If it's not Imsama, it's his power of domination that's the real final villain, because thematically it fits. In other words, we have absolute freedom once again against total domination and control. They're opposites. Your manga is about freedom. Well, if you throw Blackbeard in at the end, it doesn't fit. Unless Blackbeard eventually steals Imsama's fruit. I don't know, though. We know the final villain is already present thematically. I don't see the point. If Luffy defeats Domination now, the manga has nothing left to say. That's it. I think some people will agree with me on this. Otherwise, people will point out that I'm not commenting on it. We get a brief silhouette flashback, once again, of Joy Boy directly interacting with Imsama in the past. So, what does it mean that they were friends? I've seen rumors. Some people say he stole his girl at some point. I don't know where that comes from. I don't remember seeing that in the manga. But maybe. A love story like that in One Piece would be odd, since they're so rare. Of romance like that, it's weird. But anyway. So at some point, Imsama knew Joy Boy. They were buddies. Anyway, we know they knew each other. They faced off at least, that's for sure. But here, the exchange seemed to be cordial in the flashback. So maybe they were friends at some point, and then there was an ideological split at some point. Why not? That would be very interesting to see. Well, for a few weeks now, people have been saying there might be some time travel involved. I don't believe it because I don't see what time travel would be doing in the story. I don't see the point. Honestly, it's a pirate manga originally. Why would they travel through time? That creates too many problems. Actually, when you have a solution that causes more problems than it answers the basic questions, it means it doesn't fit. I really don't see the point of the whole time travel thing that he did. Actually, from the beginning, it's the same Joy Boy. I just don't see the narrative interest at all. So I know it can make a story that looks cool. It's wild, but you need to consider that when you hear a theory about a story. I'll bring it up again, but what does it actually say? I'm sorry, but the thing about going back in time doesn't say anything. I don't see what it's supposed to mean. I'm sorry. And then it creates crazy time paradoxes. Just forget it. I don't understand that theory. So I don't believe in it. So I think the silhouette of Joy Boy we see will look like Luffy. But that's not it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, those were a few of my thoughts, my little opinions on chapter 1181 of One Piece. I'm really looking forward to seeing 1182, which should be released in 2 weeks if I'm right. We'll discuss it again then. I'll leave it up to you, as usual, to let me know what you thought about it in the comments. And then we'll probably have a debrief with Dark Horse on a podcast during the week to discuss and debate. That's it. Anyway, feel free to leave a comment, a like, and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon on Spatchel Bros for new videos. Yes.